Welcome to Art Traffic. Let's get going. In this episode, we talked to Adee Roberson, and she is an artist that came to us from Essence Hardin. Essence had curated her into a show, and they actually knew each other from their time in Oakland together. When people ask me or us at the podcast what it is you need to do to become an artist, this is kind of like a great example of it. It's a reoccurring theme in the podcast that's come up, and it's about really being a part of the community of artists that you're in and just contributing. Finding out a way to make yourself useful almost. Nothing's for free, and nothing comes because you're just the most talented artist. Even though it's a lot easier if the work is inspiring and great and people love it, that's true. But it's almost nobody makes it by themselves as an island. Everybody makes it as a part of something. You don't ever hear about art that comes out of a vacuum. It goes in movements. And this isn't just arbitrarily thought up by art historians. Art movements happen, like, take a really famous one, for instance, the Impressionists, right? There's not one Impressionist. Art historians also go back in time and find more people that might fit into the Impressionist mold, but it's a group of artists coming from a certain area or from a certain idea and feeding off of each other, working almost in conversation with each other. This has been one of the many reoccurring themes in the podcast, and I really want to hear from you guys, the audience, on this. I see that you guys are listening through the analytics on the computer. We understand that you guys are out there and listening. Get back to us on this topic. What about community? What about art as a reflection of its community? What about art as a community unto itself? Is this really necessary? Can you be a Buddha on the mountaintop and be unaffected by anyone else and still make art that is important or relative to anyone else? You know, these are just my ideas, but definitely want to hear from other people, and maybe we can get some artists on the show to talk about that even more than they already have. Okay, so that's kind of a topic that comes up in our conversation with Adee. We also talk about where she's from, where she's going to, kind of working across mediums. Adee works as a musician a lot more earlier in her career. At this point in her career, she's doing more painting-based, collage-based works, some printmaking stuff. But she's an artist that is not confined by medium. She doesn't need to be working in a certain affect. She needs to be working on a certain idea and fleshing that out in whatever way that works. That's not how everybody works. It's not everyone's practice, but it's interesting to talk to an artist that's the way that they work. I really hope you enjoy this. Please go ahead and drop us a line. You can get a hold of us through our Instagram at arttrafficla. You can also get a hold of us through email, arttrafficpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, just shout at us and let us know what you think on this topic, artists that you'd like to hear in the future. And just keep in mind that we're keeping it LA-based. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Adee Roberson.
I was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is like an hour north of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandmother is from Jamaica, and she moved from Jamaica to New York in like the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, like when she retired, she moved to Florida. So then my mom and my aunts never moved to Florida. So a lot of us, like the second generation people, were born in Florida.
And there's this giant Jamaican community in Florida,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, there's like a lot of Jamaican people, a lot of Haitian people, a lot of Cuban people. So, yeah. But it's like, you know, in that section of South Florida. So it's like North Florida is like definitely not that, but South Florida is like the Caribbean, and
right.
there's a lot of places where people only speak Spanish, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a little Haiti, and then there's like different parts of like Fort Lauderdale and like Lauderhill where there's just like these sick Jamaican restaurants that are just like
I've been.
Like, there's this one, my mom's in town right now, actually. There's one that she was bringing up. She's like, oh, my God, we used to go there in the 90s called the Jerk Machine. And we looked it up yesterday, and it's, like, still there. But it's, like, just looks like kind of like a hole in the wall in a strip mall. But she's like, it's, like, the best Jamaican food ever.
I can't remember exactly the name of the place that I've been to, but that description's perfectly it. And the last time I was there, it was like the perfect Florida moment where it was hot as fuck. And then, but it was thunder and lightning and raining. It was just like pouring down. Mm-hmm. And everyone on the street was wearing just like T-shirts and shorts. And I don't know what, like, I've been searching for someone who could answer this for me. But I just saw everybody on the street take their shirts off when it started raining. Like, this was multiple people that I was seeing, and I'm not from there. I don't know if this is a thing. And they were, like, putting their shirts away somewhere, like, in a bag or a backpack or, like, just down the back of their pants. Huh. And then the rain stopped, and everyone took their shirts back off. It wasn't like New York where everyone pulls out an umbrella. Or the Bay Area, everyone I noticed puts on a hooded, like a rain jacket type thing. It was just like, for some reason, I've been noticing these weird regional reactions to rain. And I'm like, why in New York do we carry an umbrella, but in the Bay Area we have the hood? Yeah. And in Florida, I'm noticing people just like, we're just going to get wet.
Yeah, because it happens every day. It happens, especially in the summer. It's like every day, like clockwork. Lightning, thunder, rain at like 3 or 4. It gets so hot and so humid. Yeah. And then the clouds just explode, and you're just like, all right. But it only happens for 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. And then it stops, but it's like, it's just every day like that.
Yeah, no. Summer. Well, so when I was in this Jamaican restaurant, I thought I was going to die because the thunder and lightning was just like, it was the loudest and the hardest I've ever heard in my life. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I'm sure we're all going to die. And then by the time we were done with our meal, everything was cleared up. It was gone. I was trying to like go to the car, like in like hiding stealth mode. Like, is it going to come back and kill me? And then everything was fine. Yeah. But everybody else was looking at me like,
oh, like you're tripping.
Like, who is this kid?
Yeah, it is. It's just, I don't know.
So how long did you live in Florida?
Let's see, 7 years old to 14, and then I left for a couple of years and lived in Georgia because my mom remarried, and then came back to Florida for like my last year of high school, and was there for like a few years after that.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you make it to Oakland? And what
I
was
moved to New Orleans first.
Oh, New Orleans. Okay, this is the stuff I didn't know about.
I lived there maybe in 2003 to 2005, like 3 months before Katrina, and then I moved randomly. Wow. Was like. Moved to Oakland just a few months beforehand because I wanted to play music and play in bands. So,
what were the bands at that time in Oakland that made you go like, yeah, I gotta be there?
Let's see. I don't know if it was the bands. It was just the people. There was a group of people, like a bunch of us that were moving there that wanted to start bands together. And it was a lot of like punks of color, and we were just like, oh, we want to like move to Oakland and start a band. Like, none of us had instruments. I remember at one point we had like a practice space and we barely had anything, but
it's the best way to start.
We still managed to start like 3 bands or something. Yeah. Like, and it was like trumpet and bass and drums, and we would just like borrow stuff.
Yeah,
and
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
That's how all the best punk bands started.
Yeah. It was fun. I wish I still had the tapes of some of them, because some of them were just like, it'd be like a month, and then you tape it on a little like cassette tape, and then I don't know where that is now, but I wish I had it because some of them were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody's got to have it. One of the people that did it with. So.
Yeah. And then so you decided to make this move south.
Yeah. No. Well, I was like, I went to Portland after that, and then I went back to New Orleans, and then I went to Oakland again, and then I came here. So kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was your vision to just be like in bands, just be a punk music scene thing, and how did like the visual art take off, or it was happening at the same time, or the visual art happened first and then the music and then
It was all always happened at the same time, because when I lived in New Orleans in 2003, that's when I learned to like screen print, because I lived in a huge warehouse with all these other punk people, and we had a dark room, and we had like the whole like octopus screen printing setup. So all the flyers at that point, it was like so many flyers for shows, so everybody would screen print the flyers for the shows. And it was a weird thing between New Orleans and like Providence, where people would do like, and now we're doing like 4-color screens, 10-color screen prints of a poster for one night for a show. So it was like kind of that energy. So I learned to kind of do all of that stuff there, and so it all kind of simultaneously happened. And then 10 years ago, I was in a punk band that kind of did better. We toured like the States and Europe, called New Bloods, and we that was like the last time I was like in a punk band. It was like 10 years ago. So since then, it was kind of more art stuff.
And then coming down to Los Angeles, how was that decision made, or was it, or just like, were you coming down here? Because it's like a 7-hour drive between the two cities. It's not that far, and there's a lot of Bay Area, Los Angeles cross-pollination happening all the time.
Yeah, I was in a collective of people, and one of the members, Anna Luisa, she lived here.
So this is Black Salt now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she lived here already, so she was like, you just move down here. It'll be good. And
it'll make it easier.
Yeah, and also I think there's a certain point in the Bay Area where I felt like I kind of hit a wall with working on art stuff for me there. I felt like I wanted to... I just wanted to change, because I felt like I was kind of doing the same thing and kind of on a hamster wheel. It didn't really feel like it was moving forward for me in some ways there. I can't really fully explain like why that is, but it just all the things fell into place for me to come down here. Like I ended up having a place to live and figuring out a job situation, and I had enough money to do it at the time. And so and Essence lived here, and Anna lived here, and my friend Mike Stoltz lived here. So I already had like
like little group community,
a group of people that I've known for a long time that already lived here.
So if we're introducing hopefully an audience to your work for the first time, that's what we hope to do. So what would you want them to know, I guess, about your work, or like what are you trying to convey to this audience that you feel is like this like immediate thing? And when I see your work, the first thing I think is that this work is a celebration of something. Would you agree with that, or how would you characterize it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would want people to think it's like a celebration of joy and Black liberation, really. And in the sense that I try to illuminate and highlight a lot of experience of like Black women and Black trans people and Black queer people, and kind of, I think there's so much in art and media where there's a lot of grief around things, which I think is really important to process grief. And I think my work does that too, but it's also about the polarities of grief and celebration. And I think I got a lot of that in my practice from living in New Orleans, because it's a place where there's a lot of partying and there's a lot of fucked up shit that happens, and I think just constantly trying to always bring those things into balance, and really about like storytelling. And I think being a part of the African diaspora and being African American, a lot of the memories in that story, has been so erased. And so it's a lot about ancestral memory and trying to use color and sound as a way to like interrogate that and to like evoke that through the work. And so there's just lots of layers that end up getting used. I don't know if that's a good...
Yeah, for sure. And your work like really like supports that idea block by block, especially because you work in different mediums. And it's more than just different mediums though. it's different. It's whole different genres. It's interesting that you mentioned that you did lots of like screen printing and stuff, because now it makes the serigraph work make so much more sense to me. Mm-hmm. And the use of pattern in your painting, and then the way that you work through like music and video, and a lot of that work even works in a similar way with pattern and color. Mm-hmm. So like, what is the attraction for you to pattern, color, rhythm, like these reoccurring themes for you? Like,
I think I just see them kind of all as channels for different things to come through, for different energies to come through, so I think, there's a certain things that can only be conveyed through sound and rhythm, and then certain things through color and through collage, and then definitely taking all of these tools, even using like these kind of prints. It's like I learned about this stuff through like doing zines too, like when I was younger too. So like I tried to definitely focus on one thing at certain points in my life, like, oh, maybe I'll only do music, or maybe I'll only do visual art, but they kind of all only work together. I kind of have to always be doing them both simultaneously. And even if I try to like stray away from it, it's like, well, you need this to channel that, and you need this to do that. And so it's a lot of emotional work for me. In a sense, it helps me to just release a lot of emotions and energy through doing all the different channels of it.
How does craft and process work into that for you? Like in your day-to-day work in the studio, is your working mode the same? Is it is it like methodical and pre-thought out, or is it like I have this thing I need to express and it's like a more it's a contained explosion, or like how would you characterize that?
It's really intuitive, and I actually do a lot of like random research. So like I'll research like quilt making in the South, or like Black folk art in America, and just look at kind of what those artists have done. There'll be months where it's just like 3 months of like kind of looking at that kind of stuff, and looking at music and drum patterns, or looking at different textile, like West African textile design stuff, and looking into like what those symbols mean, and really kind of inputting a lot of things in my brain. And then I'll just intuitively work on things. So I don't know how things are going to turn out. I don't really have a plan, but I just try to come to my studio a lot and just kind of work on things slowly. And then a few months later, if I have like a show, or if I have something, I'll be like, oh, that makes sense to collage this onto that painting that I started this many months ago, because it just looks right. It happens to like come together. So it's all pretty like intuitive of a process. Like a lot of times I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just constantly kind of trying to stay in working on stuff, and then it turns out.
Do you edit and curate after that then?
Edit, like if I do video stuff,
or in any way. I mean, I guess you could do like a group of 25 paintings, and then just pick out of that group of 25, like, this is what I was trying to say, and this stuff is like, maybe it's just not discovered all the way yet, or something.
Yeah, I definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so like when you're video editing at this point, like, how does that, are those processes affecting each other?
Yeah, they are, because that video editing, now that I do it, I'm like, this is so bizarre. I don't even know what I'm doing, but somehow it still comes out looking cool.
No,
but it won't be like
throwing super powerful
stuff in, and it's like, wait, what just happened?
Okay. So like, no, that's really interesting, because we had a podcast with Dana Duff, who's a really great video artist, and she's been doing it since, like Super 8 Films. She's really established artist, right? And she's said a similar thing. She's like, powerful stuff comes out of that collage process. Yeah.
And kind of the not knowing, and the like, it doesn't feel chaotic, because it still feels grounded, but it's a little like, I have no idea what this is gonna look like, but I'm gonna layer this over this, and then you're like, oh, that looks really good.
Is that in some way the job of artists to do sort of like that R&D? If it like, does that make sense? It's kind of like, it's sort of the research and development work that can't be done in a commercial setting to me.
Okay.
Because like that's a thing that's like, it needs to make money, and we need to know what the outcome is going to be. Like if like in a commercial setting we're going to make a video, we need storyboards ahead of time, and we need, because we have this expensive crew that needs to do this and this and this on this many days, and then we have to have a very clear idea of what's going to come out at the end. But sort of like an artist such as yourself has the time and space that you can allow yourself to be explorative.
Yeah.
So, like, do you ever, like, think about maybe what your contribution is to, like, maybe video as an art form, or painting as an art form, or print, or collage, or whatever as an art form? Do you think of yourself in, like, an art historical?
It's weird. I kind of think of it as like my job as like a community member, in a way. Like, this is the thing that I do. This is the thing that I offer. I mean, I still feel really young, and I feel like I have a lot to learn. And so I don't really know, but I definitely know that like this is obviously what I'm supposed to be doing, because I am doing it, and the opportunities arise. But it feels more like, oh, this is my like role in kind of my life, in life, as this is like one of my jobs, but not in a bad way, but like it's just what I do,
Yeah. Do you ever remember making a decision to do that? Like,
I mean, I made a decision for it to be more of my life at some point, but it's always just been always just been happening. So then I finally was like, well, how can I maybe do it to maybe more so financially benefit me, hopefully, than it had in the past.
Yeah.
So,
no, like, you deserve it.
Yeah. You
deserve to get paid for this work that is enriching everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like I realize that now, but it took me so long, I think, because the kind of the punk ethics of things, where you're just like, I'm just doing everything for free, and you do whatever. But definitely hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm getting older. I want to, eventually like have things, like
yeah.
that.
So when you first kind of like were coming into that decision, and you had to make up a strategy, what was that strategy? What was that conversation with yourself like?
It's weird. I don't really remember. I think it's just more about knowing your worth, and maybe, asking for what you need. Saying no to some things that didn't feel like they were supported. Like, if someone's like, well, I want you to do this like mural thing, and you have to get the paint, and then you have to put in your time, and then it's like, oh, and then I'm gonna pay you $500, and it's not like a friend, or it's not nothing. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Just having to have better boundaries around my time and my energy, and because it costs a lot. It costs a lot to make work. So it's like, I think definitely being someone who comes from a working class background, it's like I don't have the, I'm the one who has to support myself in doing it. So I had to have a lot of, boundaries around what I said yes to and what I said no to, and just kind of making it kind of more fell into making those decisions and making better decisions around that.
Yeah.
And asking for what I actually want.
Yeah.
And not being scared of that, and being like, this is what I need to do this, or if you want this piece, this is how much it is. And that seems like a theme. That's like one of those gut check moments, I think, for artists in general, is just saying like, no, this is worth something now. Yeah, it's a wild feeling, because you're like, oh, this is just like you're creating this energy and then people buy an energy, basically, which is what it is. And it's always tripped me out. I'm like, what? How? You know,
no,
but
that's like a totally unique description I've never heard before.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, because art, you know, it's like emotional energy of some sort, and then people are like, oh, I like that emotional energy, I'm gonna buy it for this amount of money. So it's like, and then it's like, how do you really put a price on it? And so it's so like everyone seeing so many different friends in different stages in their careers, you know, from selling things for like $100 or $25 to like thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. You're like, oh shit, like this is, you know, it's like, it's just, I don't even know how it happens, but it does. It just kind of, you know.
Can we go back to Black Salt for a second and just talk about, in general, artist collectives and how does that work for you, and how does that work for your practice? And you know, lots of artists listen to this podcast. We've had artists that were in collectives before, and they all are different, and they all have a different, I'll use your word, energy, you know, and they all have different rules and goals and all those kinds of things. How did, you know, Black Salt get started, and then what are the goals, and what are the, you know, how does it work?
Well, it got started in like 2012 because we were seeing a need for like needing to have critique from people we actually trusted. And I think in the Bay Area at that time, or in many places at that time, it felt like there was so many just art things that were about like white men doing their thing and having that space. And so we were like, how do we get like honest feedback from people that's not going to be homophobic or racist or sexist? And we had to kind of cultivate our own small group. So we're like, we'll use this space to critique each other's work in an honest way by people we trust. So we know if someone's like, I can sit down and show them a painting and they'll be like, well, actually that looks unfinished, or you should add this color there, or it seems like you're not really putting a lot of energy into that right now. Maybe you should try to put more. Or that looks really good and that looks done. You don't want to overdo it. And then it will also turn into like a support thing of like editing each other's films or writing grants together so we could all get money. Just trying to have like a balance of women of color in it, and just having that, having the space to like, anytime we do a show or post about our own work, we'd also big up other people in the collective too. It's like, oh, I'm doing this. Well, hey, check out, she's doing this and she's doing that. Because that also felt like, it can feel like the art world is so like egotistical and everyone's out for themselves. And it's like, none of us really wanted to make work in that way. I still don't. Like, I think it's about having community and supporting other people in coming up, and mentoring people, or having us do things together and collaborate. So it was really about kind of creating that space. And so we did that. The main, like the kind of climax of that was we did a show of 30 artists of color, and had most of the artists were Indigenous and Black. We really wanted that to be the foundation, because I think just living in the States and living in a place that the foundation is built on like stolen land and stolen Black bodies, we were like, we really wanted this to be the foundation of our show. So we did that, and we had people like Post Commodity in it, and Lonnie Holly, and we had a mixture of elders and young people and people who were emerging and people who were already established, and it was in this huge space. It just ended up being a really great thing. And I think through the collective, all of us grew, and our work has gotten better because of just all of that kind of build up and energy and that dialogue that wasn't really happening on a certain level, not in the Bay Area, and I don't think in a lot of places, which I ran into an artist here actually recently in LA who came up to me and was like, oh, were you in Black Salt? And I was like, yeah. She's like, it was so great seeing all of these women of color making abstract work, but about identity still, but it was still abstract. And I was like, whoa, I'm so glad that was what we wanted to happen. We didn't want to have to be we obviously were working from a place of identity, but we didn't want to have to be pigeonholed like, oh, well, you're a native artist, so you're going to make work like this. Or you're a black artist, so you're going to make work like this. We wanted to do whatever we wanted to do, but still have a connection to our culture too, and not completely act like that didn't exist. So it was really about creating that space, and I felt like we were able to do it, which was really cool. It's really hard, but it's really cool.
Yeah. Would you like to, or do you have anything to say about New Bloods?
I mean, it was just fun. I mean, it was just fun to be in a punk band.
Yeah.
You know.
With a violin?
With a violin, yeah. With a violin, drums and a bass. Yeah.
So how did that all come about? You mentioned earlier that you were in some bands that didn't know how to play their instruments beforehand or whatever. Was this one of those bands?
No. Everybody was really...
This was later on.
Yeah, this was late. Yeah, this was like the last bit. Yeah. No, Osa is like... She was like a trained violinist. And then Cassia, the bass player, had never played bass before. Actually, she played keyboard. And I knew her from New Orleans, and she ended up moving to Portland. But I know they're both really great people who are still doing cool things. But yeah, it was so cute at the time because it was like 10 years ago and we were on a label. I mean, for me at least, I loved Kill Rock Stars, and like at that time, like I loved Erase Errata, still do, and like we loved like the Raincoats and the Slits, so we were into like kind of all the post-punk stuff, and we got to tour. We went to London, we met the Raincoats, and that was really cool. They like came to pick us up, and we were just like, oh my God. It was like so nerdy. It was just like, yeah, it's like it was happening to us. Like, and yeah, we toured a lot. So, and there's just so many people that I met through that time period that are still like such close friends. So yeah, it was really special.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's really been super fun to talk to you, especially because I don't know how you've gone through all of this without like super like name dropping or bragging about any of your accomplishments over all of this. I might have to do some of it, I guess. I'm gonna have to do some of the heavy lifting. So like you've been featured in like Art Forum, and you know, just like you've checked some of the big boxes that artists would love to, you know, do. Like, how does it feel to have some of those kinds of like accomplishments? I mean, MOCA, like it goes on and on.
I guess I don't think about it too much. Maybe I should. Because I'm really hard on myself, but I've been also practicing trying to be better about that too, but
there is this aspect of an artist life where you're gonna have to be able that, I don't know how to say this really, because I haven't figured it out either, is there's the promotion side where you're gonna have to say like, I'm kind of a big deal, but then it's also not really cool to say you're a big deal. But then maybe you could just pay someone to say it for you. This is the job of gallerists, maybe, I don't know, like or managers, like, but like it's a slippery situation or whatever. And then that's why I was kind of like you know,
it's like you want
maybe I'll drop the names for you if that's a
it's like I want to give myself credit for definitely doing a lot of things, and also the things that really matter to me. I'm always stoked and admired by one of my close friends, Keon Gaskin, who is a really amazing artist. He doesn't have a website. He doesn't have a bio. Yeah. And he just is like out here, and he accomplishes a lot of really amazing things. And even his bio is just like him preferring, it's just like Keon prefers not to contextualize their work, and that's the bio. But I'm really inspired by that. I feel like since I have to like kind of hustle more, and like, well, I think Keon hustles too, but I have to hustle in this other way where I'm like doing money and performances in this certain way that it's good for me to have a website, and it's good. But if I could have like none of those things and just make work and not, it kind of just exist in that, I would, because I kind of feel like I have like a little bit of a tug of war with the ego thing where I want it to be more about community and people, bringing people together, and less about like me. Yeah. But but definitely acknowledging that I am someone who can bring people together.
And you would actually have a greater ability to do that the larger your name gets.
Yeah.
So that's that weird.
Yeah, it's
like,
a weird.
That's why I'm saying it's this terrible balancing act.
Yeah.
So your performance at MOCA, when did you, I guess, how did that come about, and when did you get that call, and what was, and then how did you, like, I guess, enter into that and decide, like, going from, I guess going from, like, the beginning of your career being, like, a very DIY punk, like, we're going to make our own thing, to now you're going to be in this super established space, like, how did the process go, I guess, and...
Well, that was, again, from friendship and community, because Lauren Halsey asked me to do it, but she and I had been friends for, like, a few years, and we met kind of talking about our work. So, like, I was like, oh, I'm going to come to LA. I'd love to give you a tape or a 7-inch that I'm working on. Then I'm making this music, and then getting together and just hitting it off and relating on so many things. And just being, you know, I felt really honored and inspired by her, and I was super honored to just be asked to do that. So, but wanting to support her in activating that space at MOCA, knowing that it's like, oh, it's in an institution and these things can feel kind of cold sometimes, but bringing, like, she has this connection to funk music, and I wanted to relate that to this rhythm that I was going to create and, like, compose a whole thing where the funk, the samples from that funk and the sound of drums would then activate the installation. So it really was like another thing about collaboration and friendship and community, and really making those connections and supporting, you know, her and in this amazing seminal work that she was making. So I was just honored to be able to be a part of that process.
Was it ever, like, overwhelming? Like, oh, how is this work that's intended for this place or this audience going to translate to this place and this audience, which is, like, I don't know. It's like the institution, right?
Yeah. It felt the same as any performance. Like, I definitely got nervous beforehand. I was like, oh, man, like, I hope that... my most thing was, I hope Lauren's happy with it. I hope that it feels good to her in her space, because this is her work and she worked her ass off on that.
Yeah.
And I just want her to feel good about it. So she was there and she was like, that was beautiful. And I was like, okay, my job's done, you know, like, and so that kind of just was the only thing I was really nervous about, you know, like that this would, like, support her vision and both of our visions in a collaborative sense, and really the work, you know.
Yeah. We've just met, and, like, everything that's coming off of you is just, like, seems super, like, humble, gracious, generous.
Oh, nice.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just the vibe you're giving. And that seems like your work, and it's like you're very consistent in that throughout. So is that ever difficult to kind of, like, be consistently open and generous like that with an audience that you may not know? Because your work is it's out there, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, it's not. I think it's just I have so much support and so many people who support me, and through about my vision, and just, like, so it just feels like something, like, again, just like a part of my work and part of my life and my process. And it's just like, if I wasn't doing it, I think I would just be super depressed, you know? So I was like, I guess I just have to keep doing all this stuff.
What's a project that you look back on and you just go, like, that worked?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many that were so different and so fun, like Project Row Houses last year.
That's so weird. I was going to ask about it.
Working with a bunch of other Black women artists, Simone Lee, who is also a Jamaican artist who's just amazing, and she's just...
So can you just synopsize Row Houses, just the project for the audience, like what that was all about?
It was this project that was Black women artists for Black Lives Matter, which was just like they were trying to build, like, different... they did it in New York, and then they had people meet in LA, and then they had a few of us go out and create an installation of our work in one of the houses. But so then we were working with other people in other houses. But Project Row Houses is just such an amazing place. Like, Ryan Dennis, who is like the curator there, is just so generous and so kind, and just getting to work with all other Black women and creating these different installations and then meeting people was just such a cool experience. And being in Houston's got like their art community there is like, the art world there is very like, it's like so family oriented. Like at the opening of that, there was like it was like a block party. There were tons of kids coming into the installation, and it just felt so like accessible by everybody. And so that was just one of the things. But I feel so blessed that I feel like everything that I've gotten to do in the last few years, everything has been so different, and everything has been so great in every way. There hasn't been anything where I've just been like, oh, I'm bummed I did that, or it didn't feel good at all.
At the end of every podcast, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to one yet, we have like kind of like these two little segments that we like to get to, and it kind of comes to sort of like maybe like the point or the thing that we're trying to get across to an audience with our podcast. Hopefully we're reaching all kinds of people who are inside the art world, but hopefully we're trying to reach a lot of people who are not inside the art world and give them an idea of what it is like to be this like creative person in this community, culture, society, city, state, nation, world,
Mm-hmm.
And one of those is side hustles. I think what I would say the people who are not necessarily associated with the art world are so surprised about is what artists have to do to bring this work to them. and that's kind of what side hustles is all about. It's like every artist is different, so they all approach this question the same way. Like, some of them want to give us like the day-to-day nuts and bolts. This is what I have to do. It's a grind out here, it's a hustle. And then other people are like, this is the funny thing I had to do when I was coming up, or and we're all from everywhere. It's like every culture around the world produces artists, and we don't know why this is part of the human condition, but it is. And side hustles kind of explains in a way where we are here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. It's like I DJ once a month at Ace Hotel and show like screen things and invite other people to DJ. I'm a massage therapist. I'll do like random commission things. Like right now I'm editing a 3-minute video for someone's thesis thing, and then I sell prints online. That was really helpful the last couple of years, just having something more affordable for people to buy. There's so many random things. I don't have anything that's like too funny or random. It's just like pulling them all together and doing your own administrative work. And I think people, like, I'll talk to people who are younger artists and like, oh, well, you did this. I'm like, oh my God, well, I had to do this to get to that point. Yeah. And you literally have to, you're your own administrative person. You're your own writer for grants a lot of times. And so it's just like, you end up working like every day, really.
Yeah.
A little bit.
How many hours do you think you work in a day?
I don't know. I mean, actually, it doesn't feel like I work too much now. Sometimes I'm like...
Well, if you were to combine it, it's kind of like, let's say you did like in one day, you're like, oh, I got to go do that massage therapy thing. But first I'm going to try to edit a little, like for a few hours before I go do that. And then I'm going to come home, and then, chances are I'm going to make 5 phone calls.
I don't really work that much then. I guess maybe, I don't know, 5 to 7 hours or something. Yeah. Not every day though, but at least like 4 days a week maybe.
Yeah, and that's from the art side of things. Mm-hmm. And then what about when you're researching?
Probably similar. because it's so chill. It's like it's just like I just hang out in here and look at books. And
Yeah, I have a
like,
feeling
oh.
that you're like, oh, everything's chill, but then like it turns from day to night and you didn't realize it, right?
No, I don't know. It definitely used to be like that. I think now, since I'm in my studio more, it feels more chill. Because then it's like, oh, I'll go there for a few hours and read or do something or paint a little, listen to records.
Yeah.
But I think before it was kind of frantic. But I think the older I get, a little more chill it gets.
That's good. Is that how your work flourishes the most? When
Yeah.
it feels relaxed.
I think so, yeah. I know, but then I see my other friends who are always working so hard on things. I'm like, maybe I should go harder. I mean, like, because I'm a little too chill. Because I see my other friends, they're making sculptures, gigantic things, doing a whole. I'm like oh my God.
But then, yeah, I mean,
Some people, that's their practice.
Right. That's their energy.
Yeah, and that's their
right?
energy. Mine is more of like relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely get stuff done. I'm not flaky and I'm on time, but I also just love to I love relaxation.
No, we've seen your CV. It's not flaky.
No, I get stuff done, but I also give it a lot of time to chill too.
Yeah.
To balance everything out.
Okay, so our last segment would be, who would you like to hear from on a long format podcast that you would kind of recommend to us? Like, you guys have got to hear about this person's work.
There's so many people. There's too
No,
many
I know
people.
it's impossible. And
This
then the
is too
minute we
hard.
leave, you're gonna go like, "Oh, I forgot about this person." Obviously, we cannot do interviews with everyone that everybody knows.
I can't even do
but
one.
we're gonna try.
I can't even do one. I couldn't just do one. I couldn't.
You want to know what?
There's too many people.
Essence Harden pulled the trigger on you. So you're going to have to pull the trigger on someone.
Well, I guess I'll just do this. I'll just say this because I collaborate with Anna Luisa Petrisco, who is like a collective. We've just collaborated together so much. So.
And you mentioned Lauren so many times.
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's too many people. There's so many people. Of course, I love Lauren Halsey. I love Sadie Barnett. I just saw her show last night. There's this person, Ashley Teamer, who lives in New Orleans. That's amazing.
Oh, we're gonna help you with that because we only do LA artists.
Okay.
That's how we limit it for all of us because we geographically have a rough time.
There's so many. I don't know. There's so many people.
Yeah.
There's so many great people in LA that are just doing. I feel so lucky to get to be here right now because.
Oh, I know.
There's just
absolutely.
so many.
There's so many great people.
It's just every day I'm just.
I was going to lunch the other day, and it was just so random out of nowhere, and I just saw Diedrich Brackens walking in, and I was walking out. I just such a dumb thing. Like I've met him several times. He's very sweet, great person, and everything like that. And I waved like Forrest Gump at him.
Yeah.
He didn't see me.
I mean, Diedrich is just that's another. Diedrich is just like.
So yeah, he's really good.
So nice.
Yeah.
And so talented. I'm just like, what? And I'm like.
Yeah, but that just shows you how you can't throw a rock in this town right now without hitting someone that's amazing. You know? So
amazing, yeah. So many really cool people, and everyone's so nice. That's the thing that gets me. You would think I don't know. That's the thing. You would think people would be kind of snobby or rude or I've definitely experienced that in my life where there's people I've looked up to. I met them and they're not very nice. You know, the kind of kill your idols thing.
Yeah,
where wow, I met you and that sucked. Doesn't happen to me anymore. But being here, I've just only met so many generous, kind people. I think it's made me feel like being more kind because I'm like, everyone here, so that I've met, kind of in the art world or the smaller thing that I'm a part of, everyone's been so generous and so kind to me and so supportive of me. Yeah. And just so offering so much knowledge and so much skill and I'm just like, whoa. So I'm just grateful to get to be in that
I'm wondering,
now.
just as you're talking right here, if that isn't sort of part of like the hallmark of this time period that we're going through, because we went through I think the 60s and through like a lot of the like art educators that came from that time, who like kind of like educated the next generation. A big part of that was something that you mentioned several times already, just while we've been recording, was, you know, community. And that's just like an idea that we should be like part of a community that promotes each other and supports each other. And it seems like the emphasis is off of maybe being a celebrity or an art star. Kind of like art star was something that was just like a term that was just like so heavily used here in the 80s. And, you know, it was much more this like cocaine infused like art scene that was just all like, it seemed like everyone was trying to be the one, maybe. Whereas now it feels like everything is being the way that you just described it.
Yeah. There's not a scarcity narrative where it's like, if I don't,
yes,
you have to be the one person that's like this, and I have to be the one person that's like this. And it's more of like, I hope we all win.
Yeah.
You know, like, I hope we all get what we need and feel supported. And I have to say that this is like the only place that I've lived recently that it feels that way. And
wow.
And it's so funny because you would think people are like, oh, LA, like it seems like it would be not like that, but it's, so when people will be like, you live in LA, that seems like it'd be hard, or it's like weird film industry stuff, and people will be weird. I'm like, everyone has been nothing but nice, so I don't really, and supportive.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of like in this because I've been in and around the art world in this one city. I don't really know the other cities that well, even though I visit them and whatever. I think we're in a kind of a golden period right now, maybe, that hasn't existed here in LA since maybe the Ferris Gallery type time zone, where it was like the where LA was not considered to be an art hub. This is like the late 60s, 70s time period here, where it was like people maybe came here because it wasn't New York.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, because that was considered the art center at that moment. And I don't know that LA is the art center at this moment, but I know it's kind of a good one.
Yeah, it definitely feels like at some points people are like, you have to make a decision to go to New York or LA. And I'm like, oh, I would never want to go to New York. I mean, what? Be cold? Be
No, there's
stressed?
a lot of New Yorkers coming here too, and most of them are
They don't really like it though. I feel like
they're like, from the ones that I've talked to, they're saying like they're just priced out of New York in every kind of a way. And so they're like making the coastal jump, I guess. And I don't know, we'll see what kind of comes out of that. But in art historical terms, it kind of does mean we benefit in a way, because during World War II, when Europe emptied of artists and they all came to New York, that's why New York exploded. So it seems like can only benefit. I hope. So. Maybe I'm just an optimist.
I feel like I've met a lot of people who've moved out from New York and don't like it here and go back.
How did they afford it?
I don't know.
They moved to upstate.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
No, they just moved back. I don't know. They don't like how spread out it is here. All the space.
Yeah. And there are aspects to here that's tougher, and that public transport is not a thing. When you came from like driving places all the time though,
well,
like
Oakland,
New Orleans
and
Florida and Oakland, you definitely have BART and all that kind of stuff. Is that was that your lifestyle there, where it was just public transport, and then you had to
I
like.
drove too.
So that
Definitely drive
wasn't
more
like a
here.
cultural
No.
weird thing for you.
I mean, I definitely drive more here than I did in those places, but I don't mind it. I don't mind the sprawling and this. I like space, so I'm like, oh, I'm fine with. I don't need to be.
What was the big cultural difference between Oakland and LA?
I think that just like space, like energetic space. I think to do.
Do you do that thing where you get in the car and you're just like, I'm gonna go to the desert, or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely done that here.
And what is that?
So nice.
What's that like?
So close. It's so nice. And then I have a few friends who like bought houses out there now too. So that's really nice. It's like
Palm Springs or Joshua Tree or whatever.
Joshua
Both.
Tree,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a different landscape. It's wild, huh?
It's really peaceful though. I wouldn't want to live out there because I don't. It's a little too dry for me. Like I do like the more like the humidity and stuff, but it's just so beautiful.
Did the landscape affect your work? Some people say the light or the landscape or something.
It just feels like it gave it more space too. I felt like a little bit more closed in before, and now things feel like they're open a little bit more.
And that came out in the work?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I kind of like recently I've thought a lot about in this podcast, in this sense, is we've heard from a couple of different high school teachers that said, play our podcast in their class while kids are doing work. And they get to hear about like what's the real life, artists, working artists, what is their life like? And it makes me kind of want to get the reaction of the artists of like, I guess, did you have an expectation of what a working artist's life would be before you got there? And how is it the same or different than the reality of your day-to-day, I guess?
I think I had no idea that you could do it as a job, which I think a lot of people don't. Like, I just taught a class in New Orleans, actually, that was like 15-year-olds, and they had so many questions for me.
Yeah.
I was like, and all the questions were so good. They were just like, well, what do you do when you're done with high school? And how do you make friends who are artists? Or what if people don't like your art that you're making? Or how do you meet? Yeah, it was a lot of how do you meet other artists or how do you meet other people? And I felt like so stumped. I was like, you go to shows or you go to, but they had so many questions for me about just like the practical nature of it. Yeah, I was kind of stumped because I was like, oh, I don't even know how it kind of got to that point. And I was just trying to explain it to them, but I was mostly like ask for help, like ask for people to, I was like, you can hit me up and ask me to like look over an artist statement for you or help you to write it, because I think that's the thing. It's like people feel like it's so inaccessible. You see people doing stuff or you see it on social media and it's like you don't realize the steps it took for them to get there. But I had to have someone help me write my first artist statement or learn how to write grants or like do all of these things. And so I just told them, I was like, hit me up like anytime. Like I don't mind being like a mentor to people because it's really hard to figure out. And I have a brother who's 23 too, and he was like, after seeing you and your friends, I had no idea you could like get paid to do a performance. I was like, yeah, you can get, he was like, that's so cool. I think people just don't realize that you can kind of get paid to just be yourself and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is just, it's hard to explain how to get to that point, but I always just tell people to like ask for help or ask people questions.
So you never really planned on this when you were younger, huh?
I mean, I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea that was like a possibility.
But you knew that artists existed.
Yeah, but I didn't know that like you could actually sell things. And
what was your, I guess, what was your expectation of what their lives were like, or did you have, or you didn't care?
I didn't have any.
You didn't care.
No, they just looked like, the only people that I really kind of looked up to when I was younger was kind of a weird black folk artist who like lived in Georgia in the middle of nowhere, and their whole house was like a sculpture garden and like bottle trees and bubblegum sculptures and quilts, and I just was like, that looks cool and that's how I want to live. I just want to I just want to be a weird person who just lives in a house and like the whole house is like just really colorful and beautiful and just has like radiates a positive energy. So like that's all I wanted really to do. Like that was like, oh, cool. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to be. That just looks so like peaceful.
Yeah.
To be in your own kind of world, magical, mystical world that you created, and then have people come into that and see other people's worlds. And so I didn't really, at that point, I didn't really think of it as like,
So artist is almost like a label that's limiting to you, maybe?
No.
Or it's just that you define it?
Yeah, it's just, I feel like it's different for everybody. I think probably how they saw it and how they wanted to be it, but that was definitely
I think you just answered it for all those kids.
Yeah.
Like, artist is a thing that you get to decide what it is all the time. And it's always changing, and change it as you like.
Mm-hmm. And
That
basically,
may be
I
the
think
best
it's about
definition I've ever heard.
Yeah, doing whatever you want to do when you want to do it, and then hopefully get paid for it. It's like,
and then if not, I don't know,
and
collect bottles.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, if it's just fine, you still have to do it anyways. Like, you're going to have to do it no matter what, so.
Okay, that was our conversation with Adee Roberson. Thanks to Essence Harden, who put us in contact with her. It's great to be getting back to the podcast after having a little break. Just like everybody that's on the podcast, we have side hustles too, and we get real busy with that. So thanks for everybody's patience. I have run into some listeners on the street, and they've been like, when's the new podcast? When's happening? So yeah, basically we need to go out and make a bunch of money, and whenever we have a pause, you guys can pretty much be guaranteed that that's what is happening. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Get back to us with anything that artists that you'd like to hear from, and we will see you on the next one.